Hello, everybody. How are we all doing today? I hope that you're well. It's fairly nice and sunny here. It's supposed to hit the 90s sometime today or tomorrow, so I'm not looking forward to that. Hey, Blair, how you doing? Good to see you. Really enjoyed your live the other day. You guys jumped right in. That was pretty deep right from the start. So thank you for having that live. Anybody that didn't see Blair's live, definitely go and check that out. All right, my special guest has jumped on today. I'm letting him, let's see if he wants to join with us or not. Okay, he hasn't said he wanted to join yet, so I'll wait for him to log on. He said it was dark where he was at, so he had to set up some lighting, which is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Today we get to talk and kind of dive into Mox's life a lot. So I'm looking forward to this because I love getting. So he has requested to join now, so we will jump on with him, and I'm sure you'll be happy to see his smiling face. Hey!
Hey, what's up?
Oh, just put one foot in front of the other. How about yourself?
I feel that actually. I had a very busy week and it's been a lot of put one foot in front of the other.
Hmm. Yeah. It's been I want to say it has been an exhausting week.
I
And I
know.
why, because I don't know, like, maybe it's children for me. Maybe that's
Maybe I can't relate, but I'm sure it's probably the children if you do have,
good for you.
you know. And hey, Blair, love you.
Blair's come to show her love for you.
I
And
know. I adore her.
yeah,
Be so
so
cool.
so you've had a busy week.
I
Um,
have.
anything good happen this week?
Well, for the first time in a very long, well, actually the first time ever, I had renovated my room by myself. And anybody who knows me knows that I am the least like manual person in the whole entire universe. I do not know how to build anything. I do not know how to use anything that would um, force me to exert energy. And so I painted my entire room by myself and built two dressers. Took
Wow,
me all day. I know, took me all day, but I still did it.
that's
I was impressed.
yeah. It's interesting. First of all, hi, Goddess. It's great to see you. We love.
Hi.
So I think it's interesting because when we talked on our Zoom, you had this kick-ass headboard that I love,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You were talking about redoing it all, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I was. Yeah.
you back. I would love to, if you don't mind, sometime love to see what you did with
I
all.
know. I actually plan on posting it eventually. All I have right now is the new rug, the this Persian rug. It's a model. It's not a real one. I can't afford that. And then uh a new wall color and new nightstands. And I got an old vintage dresser recently because anybody who knows me knows that I love antiques and mixing old with new. So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so let's get started here because I'm
Yeah.
excited about this live because not only do I love the content on your page,
Thank
uh,
you.
but I love the voice in which you share your content. The way,
Thank you.
right? So, big fan of yours. So it's, you know, I'm not going to say it's a little intimidating talking to you, but I'm a really big fan of yours. So just okay. So
Oh goodness, you're too kind.
with that being said, um, what for those that won't know you or don't know you that follow me, maybe not you or whatever have you, would you take a moment just kind of introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Makcum Novikov. I run a page over here on Instagram called Divinely LGBTQ. And I really just talk about the intersection between, faith, progressive faith, and social justice, and all of my heart's passion, which is, making sure this is an equal and equitable world, and also joining in faith and contemplative practices. So yeah, that's pretty
Uh,
much what I do. And I talk about queerness and what that's like. So experiences in the church. I talk about it all.
Right. Well, I think it's kind of cool here that Goddess of Tetris says, I'm a fangirling for both of you.
I love Goddess of Tetris.
Oh,
Yes,
she's,
she's so cool. I actually just talked to her yesterday.
oh, it's always a good day when you get to talk to her.
I know. She's such a good soul.
All right. So, knowing that, like, is it fair to describe you as an intellectual?
I probably, yeah. I don't think I'm that intellectual, but I've been known for it. So, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get around here.
I'm calling intellectual. Okay. So, that being the case, tell us a little about your religious background.
So my religious background is kind of mixed. It's kind of an odd mixed bag of things. So I was raised like Protestant fundamentalist, and I had on one side of my family, my grandparents' side, it was like strict Baptist, First Baptist, and then on my mother's church my mother was attending a Pentecostal church, and it was actually in a very formidable year, I think, because I was around 10 or 11. I had found out by that point that I was already gay, and and then going to the Pentecostal church and learning about all sorts of things from like demon possessions and a lot of shame and a lot of scary stuff such as end world conspiracies. It definitely had a lasting effect on a lot of my earlier years. So yeah, it's quite a mixed bag.
Yeah. That's okay. So, you described yourself as being, Baptist. Okay. So,
Yeah,
I both relate on the Baptist realm, right? But
right.
go Pentecostal. That's like the anti-Baptists.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think every religion is anti one another. So like the Catholics are anti-Protestant, Protestants are anti-Catholic, Baptists are anti-Pentecostals, Pentecostals vice versa.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I agree.
yeah,
I agree.
they all
So,
hate each other. So it's a
how?
religion of love, don't forget.
Yeah, it's all love,
It's
right?
all love.
Love for everybody.
Except you're going to hell, I'm not, because I'm a Baptist. So
A little bit. It's a little bit of the bait and switch, but it's okay. It's all
yeah,
right. Fine.
yeah.
Fine. Um, so, uh, so okay. You said that you knew that you were gay at like 11, right?
No, I knew I was gay prior to 11. It was just
Right.
around that time. So yeah, I probably knew I was like, I didn't have language for it, but I knew I was attracted to boys probably when I was like 8. And that was when I was going to the Baptist church. Then I went to the like around 11 or 12 to the Pentecostal church. But
How did
yeah, I was,
that? How did you survive in religion?
unhealthy coping mechanisms. Staying, I don't know, there's a lot of denial in that. So I was one of the people that my mother had seen, adult content on the computer. And so I did the like complete switch, and I was like, no, this is just a struggle. Jesus is going to heal me of this. And so I lived in that kind of headspace for a long time. And that led to a lot of unfortunate worldviews, because when you're ultimately unhappy with who you are, you will ultimately be unhappy with the world you live in. And so you start to form unhealthy worldviews and how you see one another's, and you start to become cut off emotionally from everything and everyone. So,
You're
yeah.
getting such a young age to
Yeah.
boot. I mean, so going through this process, what led you, basically what led you to deconstruct? Like, was there a breaking moment or a series of moments, or?
I think, honestly, looking back, and the more that I've become more familiar with deconstruction, I've learned that I've probably been deconstructing since I was a child. I remember I have two funny stories. So when I was a kid in Sunday school class, like when we went up to the auditorium and the little kids sat up in front and there was an adult that taught like a little kids lesson. Well, we were talking about Adam and Eve. And I guess it was a lesson that I learned prior to going to the church, because my mother always said, like, you can't punish someone for something they don't already know. So you have to let them know, and then they can be punished. And so I guess I took that to Sunday school, because I was sitting in the class and they were talking about Adam and Eve and how they both got punished. And I'm like, well, if they had such, like, basically, I'm going to use adult words, if they were so naive to everything and they were completely only had one experience, then how can they be held accountable for sinning against God when they didn't even know what the hell that was? I didn't say it like that, but that's what I was relating. And of course, the teacher had no idea how to answer. And my mother, I just remember looking back at my mother, and she was not pleased.
It's a
Yeah,
great question.
it's a great question. I mean, I take pride in that. And then I had another experience when I was in church. I think I was probably like 13 at the time. Yeah, probably 13. And they were talking about heaven. And I asked the youth leader, I'm like, well, what do we do when we get to heaven? I was probably actually younger. And they were like, we stand in front of the Lord and we just worship the whole time. And I remember something within me, like my intuitive knowing coming up and saying, no, that's not it. And I just knew that that was not what happens. It was like, I wasn't being rebellious. I was a very devout, Christian boy.
Yeah.
I just didn't believe that. I believed that there had to be something more. And as I've deconstructed as an adult, I think I've come to different conclusions that make a little bit more sense. So, I mean, I don't actually know. I mean, who knows the afterlife? I don't. I haven't had any near-death experiences like that.
No, neither have I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. So Goddess made this comment, which I thought was interesting. She says, "It sucks feeling like you can't tell your truth to your loved ones. I understand."
Yeah.
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 Um,
Yeah. It's hard because, our families and friends and our church family too are supposed to be our family. They're, and what we think of family is that, people we can go to and discuss things that are uncomfortable and still be welcomed, totally.
yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of us have not had that experience with our families. And I think that leads to a lot of secrecy. It leads to a lot of things that create unhealthy, lives because we can't live in our fullness. And I'm speaking from personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
When we're
Yeah.
forced into isolation, what do you do in isolation? You create secrets, you create unhealthy things. So I think that's why a lot of boys not to talk about something separate, but I think that that's why a lot of boys have an unhealthy relationship with pornography. It's because it's been shamed and it's been such this taboo that they've not been able to, do it responsibly. So they start creating unhealthy coping, which creates a porn addiction. Because there's nothing wrong with porn, I don't personally think. But when there's so much shame and stuff, I think there's that allure about it, which makes it more secretive and things like that. So I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also the understanding when you're a child. Now, I grew up without the internet, so I didn't have it at my fingertips kind of idea. But I think that growing up, the way I can speak for it is it was something that was evil. It was never explained why I'd have the feelings I'd have.
Yeah.
Or the desires. It was just shamed, right?
Yeah.
And I think you're ultimately incredibly correct when it comes to the way in which children deal with porn even today.
Yeah. Yeah.
How they abuse it because we are so lame at educating.
Yeah. If we don't teach people a healthy form of sexuality, they're bound to pick up unhealthy habits around sexuality.
Yeah.
That's around anything. So,
yep.
Yeah, I think that like a lot of things like that is a lot of our society's doings. And if we would have handled it like more appropriately, I think we would have had, like, for instance, better sex education. We probably wouldn't have as many issues that a lot of teens are unfortunately having to go through.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you can't. I did an IG Live with someone a little while ago that was trying to bring sex education into the church.
Amazing. Yeah.
And the challenges that she faced. So let me ask you this. Speaking of the church again, do you hold to any spirituality in your life coming through and where you are now?
Yeah, tons. So I practice meditation frequently, as well as practicing prayer, which I still struggle with the concept of prayer. I don't really know how to do it because I don't believe I'm talking to like this anthropologetic man up in the sky who is far away from me and I'm like pleading to get something I want. Although I've noticed that when I am backed up against the wall, that tends to be my default. Which, I mean, I don't know why I do it, because I know it doesn't make any difference. But yeah, I pray, I meditate. But I also just, I think a spiritual practice is just living in complete alignment with yourself and having dignity. I mean, I personally consider that a spiritual practice, because when you're living in your honesty and authenticity, you're honoring yourself in that.
Right, right. So spirituality is kind of a big word, right?
Yeah,
Because like everything gets lumped.
everything.
Spirituality. Are you spiritual?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm spiritual. That could mean
yeah,
anything, right?
yeah.
Do you, I guess I should ask, do you still hold to the teachings of the Bible? Do you grab different religions? What?
Yeah, so I practice as an interfaith person. So I take from all faiths, because I think all faiths um, reflect the image of God, just as we as people do. And so I think religion is like, it's a cultural phenomenon, and each culture has its own ways of relating to God according to their culture and traditions. And, you know, it's only natural that you would look at that. I mean, I see it that way anyways.
No, I err on that side as well.
Yeah.
Christianity not being the only correct religion,
No, no,
right?
I think that's actually what really helped me leave the church. That was one of the big things, because I actually have this post that I've yet to put up, but it's basically 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And it's about how there in the church, there was always this 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, where we would say, God loves everybody, yay, yay, yay. And then they would have to take 2 steps back and say, well, he doesn't love the Muslims. He doesn't love the Hindus. He loves them, but not enough to let him into heaven. And
Right.
so there was always this 3 steps back, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back mentality, that it didn't sit right with my heart, because I had friends that were atheists. I had friends that weren't of my faith, and they were such good and wholesome people. And I felt like they reflected the image of God better than most of the Christians that I had experience with. And so to think that they wouldn't have the opportunity to go to heaven felt unjust, and I couldn't follow a God that would allow that.
Totally. One of the questions that to this day haunts me was trying to answer a youth in church,
Mm,
and she had a Jehovah Witness friend, and she's like, "So you're telling me my friend is not going to go to heaven?" Uh,
yeah,
and it was like I started thinking about it, kind of like no, God created your friend, but also foresaw that they were going to go to hell. Uh,
mm,
I mean, where's the
yeah,
justice? I mean, if you
yeah,
want to give God all power, I mean, you're
right,
basically it's a cobweb of things, right? So,
yeah,
and so I started looking to other religions as well, and you're right. Different societies have come up with their interpretation, their view, their understanding of God,
right, right.
right?
I actually learned that Christianity is the only religion, and correct me if I'm wrong, that believes in original sin, the concept of original sin. So they could have, I mean, another culture could have a different name for it, but
Mm,
apparently Christianity is the only one that believes that we were made inherently sinful, whereas other religions tend to err on the side of everybody is made with original blessing, goodness. We start off good at first.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think of that, and I have such a struggle. See, that's what blew a hole in one of the many things that blew a hole in Christianity for me was the fact that the concept of original sin
Yeah.
and it being passed down from generation to generation, and I just
Yeah.
think makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
But the things,
I think something that I really liked from Richard Rohr's, because he's a Franciscan, and he doesn't believe in original sin, but he does believe, I think, in like a wound that we've had, which a wound is something that it's just through generational trauma and things like that. It's not about inherent badness or inherent, um, sinfulness. I think we're all inherently good,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who looks at their child when they're born and go, well, you're sinful and you better get saved because you're going to hell.
I
Um,
know. Yeah. No, there's people that do though. That's something that I thought
oh,
was that I think is interesting is that is through my through talking with people that are still of my old faith, they really do believe that a child is still inherently sinful. Now, but they don't believe like I guess the child will go to hell. They believe in like the age of accountability as you know many Christians refer to. So I guess there's some random age that God chose to, you know, you're 12, you made it, you know.
yeah. Well, yeah. But just to make sure, the Catholics make sure in baby baptism, right?
Yeah, baby baptism.
They
Yeah.
just want to make sure they don't have to worry about that age of accountability, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. We've got our wonderful. Uh, let's see. Most sins are only bad because we've accepted the definition of a human action as bad or immoral, like defining sexuality as lust. And
Yeah.
you know what?
Wow. Yeah.
I will say this is I've stopped, and I know I struggle with this. I stopped referring to things as right and wrong,
Right.
bad and good.
Right.
You know, and expanding the thought process and the social constructs with that. And so, um, you know, naturally, when you do that, well, okay, for being in a religion as long as I was, it's very difficult to get that through my thick head, right? Because it's
Yeah.
programmed in there. Um, but it does shed light and makes you look at life differently when you do remove the bad versus good,
Yeah.
you know, kind of concept, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, let me ask you another question. Um, so everybody knows you as being incredibly kind, incredibly intelligent, right? And especially, I'd like to focus on how courageous you are, okay?
Yeah.
And what you've done through life. Um, talk, because I've seen my daughter do this, and so I'm interested about what you would have to say is talk us through your decision, if there was a process, to let other people know that you're gay within the church.
Yeah, there was a
Uh,
lot of there was a few times there was time in the beginning it was just I was struggling with same-sex attraction. That's how it was first discussed. And each time honestly had traumatizing um results. But when I officially came out as gay and I actually felt confident in that and was ready to take a step forward in accepting it, and I think I had already left. I mean, I'd not left the church, but I wasn't attending church. I was still Christian. I was just like, I guess, a progressive Christian, but like dipping my toe in progressive Christianity. I still wasn't sure. I think the hardest part and the thing that took most courage was telling my mother, because in the past it wasn't a really good conversation. It had a lot of negative memories attached to it. So I'd actually had um, I hate to, because it sounds really dramatic, but I had sort of like an escape thing. Like I was going to go stay with someone who, it was an inappropriate relationship with an adult. And I was going to go stay with them in California. And he had like my plane ticket and everything for after I would tell my mom. And shockingly, my mother had a more, I guess, accepting response to it, which it took me off my feet. I was shocked. I was stunned because it was something I wasn't even thinking would ever happen. And so I ended up staying with her, and yeah, but it's a blessing because now we own a home together and we have a great relationship, and a lot of progress has been made. She still has very there's definitely still opinions I do not like of hers, but you know, we've done a lot of healing, and I have to often look at where we came from,
right.
and acknowledge the amount of patience that both of us had to have with one another in kind of stepping into new territory.
Wow, very brave. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. You've been able to kind of heal and build that relationship with your mom.
Yeah. But when it comes to the church, although I wasn't a part of the church, I've still dealt with the church. because I mean, I live in a conservative area and everybody I know goes to church. So I've had even coworkers like tell me to read a certain verse in the Bible and you can assume what verses those are, and which is entirely inappropriate. But you know, I kind of walked into it, so what can you say? And there's definitely been unpleasant experiences. I mean, you have no idea how many pastors have invited me out to coffee, you know. And if you know anything about church culture, that's just a way of
Yeah. You are their mission.
I am their mission. Yeah.
Yeah. The little feather in their cap. They said, yeah, I took somebody
Yes.
coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Now I just stump them because I'll just say, because they'll make it seem like they're like accepting, but they're not accepting. They're just tolerant. That's what accepting is in the church. They're just tolerant. They don't like it. They don't support it. But they accept it. I mean, it's not a good word. I don't like it. I don't want to be accepted. I want to be embraced. I want to be affirmed. I want to be seen fully as I am without any negative connotations attached to it or negative anything attached. And so I would go out to coffee with these pastors, and I remember I would just say, but are you affirming? And it's so funny to watch them get antsy in their chair because they don't know how to answer it because they're not. And they wanted to kind of pull the wool over my eyes. And I see exactly what it is. And
Right.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, they're a part of a system that tells them something and they take it for what it is. And, you know.
Well, I mean, I can verify that because, you know, obviously being a former pastor, yeah, everybody's loved, everybody's welcomed. We want to make sure that, you know, they feel loved as they come through the door. But it's all a bait switch.
It really is.
Right.
It really is. It's to hook you up and then come just as you are so we can change you tomorrow.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's so, to me, that was something I really struggled with it as a child because I just wanted to be accepted as I was. I didn't want to have to work for love because that was my entire human experience. Why do I have to have that for a God relationship? And so I had such limiting understandings of love and what that looked like, which I think caused a lot of unhealthy relationships in my future. And it's taken me forever to realize that I can be loved just for who I am. And if anybody doesn't like it, then they're not meant for me. And that's okay. Great. No hard feelings, really.
Yeah. And I grew up with the idea that said, hey, become less, become humble because you're not worthy of love.
Yeah.
Unless you become more like God himself.
Yeah.
Right. So
you're always jumping through hoops.
Yes.
If you do a good deed, you didn't do enough good deeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in the grace faith-based churches, they still have that kind of model. It's like, yeah, you're saved by grace, 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 grace. But
actually, someone, I think it was Myra or Goddess of Tetris, she had said, God loves everyone, but be careful to read the fine print. And I thought that was brilliant because that really is what it is.
Well, it's like when I would get a job description and it have all these things on the very bottom and say, and all other duties as you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. And
so
Sean's sons, I can't read the rest of it, but she said, and once you start jumping through those, it's hard to stop. There is sort of this like competitive, you know, I want to jump as through many hoops to kind of prove my goodness to God and continue. And it's just a nonstop unhealthy cycle of I did this good deed. Now I'm going to lash myself because I didn't do enough. I'm going to jump to the next dupe, lash myself. I didn't do enough and keep forward.
Yes. So let me ask you this, because you mentioned progressive Christianity, right?
Yeah.
And so what are your thoughts on the progressive Christianity movement today?
You know, I think something great about the progressive Christian movement is that it is a sort of a reformation of the faith. And it's a collection of people who had the courage to question their upbringings and question their doctrines and say, this doesn't sit right with me. This doesn't speak to the message of Jesus. And so on that hand, I have to give a ton of credit, because it really is a bunch of courageous badasses questioning the system and upholding the messages of Jesus. Now, on the other hand, I struggle with progressive Christianity. And it's not, I guess, the message of progressive Christianity, but I think at times they focus too much on their loathing for the traditional church. And they kind of, that seems to be their foundation of their teachings, is we're not like them. And it doesn't really still doesn't teach what the central message of Jesus's teachings are, which is, love everyone. That doesn't mean support systems. That doesn't mean encourage or even stand alongside toxic, doctrines and bad behavior and things like that. It just means that we have to be, I totally lost my train of thought right there. I know. But I think that there needs to be, I wish that progressive Christianity hadn't, just stuck to what the message is and didn't have to say, well, we're not like those other Christians, because that really doesn't really speak to like a healthy heart. And I'm guilty of it too. I probably still do. I mean, look on a post. I'm sure I have it, but it's something that I'm not proud of. And it's something that I try to steer away from.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think you hit that correctly, in the sense that the knee-jerk reaction for progressive Christians these days is when they go out and say, we're not like the traditionalists, we're not like this or that and that.
yeah.
That's such an old school thought.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what religions have tried to do to make themselves seem better than other religions.
Yeah. We're using the old template for a new reformation.
Right. Exactly. And, it's funny, but I have come to actually appreciate Jesus more since leaving the church.
Yeah.
When I was in it. And I sometimes follow this group called the Red Letter Christians. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm always interested to see what happens or how people live their life if they just read the words of Jesus. Right? And nothing.
Yeah.
Like, would the misogyny go away? Would the hate towards the LGBTQ plus community go away? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think actually that's something that is such an important point, is that growing up, I really didn't know much about Jesus. I knew a lot about what Paul taught. I knew a lot about like Old Testament, but I didn't know about the Sermon on the Mount until I started deconstructing on God. Swear. And man. I didn't know about, I knew about like the, oh goodness, I'm going to totally flake on this. The Last Supper, because we, give us today our daily bread. I know that. But really, I didn't know much about Jesus. And so something I thought was super cool, and I think put fire to my wanting to deconstruct, was like learning this entire new side of Jesus, which was sort of an advocate and a badass of his days, giving voice to women and allowing them to sit at the table and, going alongside those that were ill and the marginalized. That was something I never heard about. If anything, my church was always against the marginalized. They were the ones who were oppressing the marginalized through their politics, through their whatever methods they had.
No, I agree. And I think it's interesting. Myra said that's because most of his teachings were Gnostic. Well,
they were, yeah.
Gnostic Gospels and whatever have you. But
yeah,
it is fascinating to read his words. And I think that, now there's such debate about what did he really say, which
I
Jesus,
know.
And we're,
yeah.
You're right. It wasn't necessarily written by the Gospels, right. Or not the disciples, sorry.
Right.
And Paul just came on and just made everything shit. But
yeah, it's quite the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
To go through. I have to be very careful because, if you start going down all these rabbit holes, you're never going to find peace. You're never going to find all your answers. And I think that there's kind of become this religion out of finding information. And that is so unhealthy. You're never going to be appeased. You're always going to be looking for the next thing. And by the time of it, you're just going to be like, nothing exists. Jesus doesn't exist. The cross wasn't real. I mean, I don't know if these things are true. I'm just saying, like, you're just going to start, you're never going to find an end. It's
Right.
just going to be constant, yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting because we as Americans have taken scripture and made it into bullet points and outlines.
Idolatrous too.
Yeah, exactly. And in the Old Testament, the Jewish people, they referred to God as a rock or an ever-flowing stream, or he wasn't necessarily definable.
Yeah.
Within,
Yeah.
There's even talk of God having a council, much like Zeus had a council.
Yeah.
And the Psalms, all these kinds of other things in there. So he wasn't a PowerPoint. He wasn't this is how we define, this is how we do church, right? And people were just trying to interpret the best they could about what they were experiencing in the universe.
Yeah.
God. So, which leads me to my next question for you. Was that a frown face I got from Zeus, from Myra? Yeah. I had to throw Zeus out there. So
I know.
How, I love that. Have you redefined the word belief? I mean, how has that word belief changed in your opinion?
Belief. I don't know. I think belief is always apt to change. I mean, my beliefs change every day, depending on my mood even, I think belief is, how I judge my beliefs, and how, I guess it's important for me to just put it this way. If I'm going to hold a belief, I have to see what is the fruits that's going to come from that belief. Right. Yeah. And so if I have a belief and it causes, the marginalization of my neighbor, that's not a good fruit to have on your tree. And you probably need to knock it down.
Right.
And so, my beliefs, I guess, I always try to make sure that my beliefs are healthy and in line with my convictions, because I really do look at love being my convictions being my religion, and love being my method. And so yeah, I don't know if that even answers your question, but that's kind of where I'm at with belief right now.
Well, I like it.
Yeah.
Let me answer something. Myra chimed in and said, he was a rapist and a liar. I'm good on that. I understand. I do not hold Zeus in high regard.
I honestly don't know much about Greek mythology, although I do know that through my studies of Revelation and different things like that, there's a lot of copycatting there from, old mythology, pagan mythology.
Mm-hmm. Oh, copycatting a lot.
Yeah, tons. Yeah, even down to the descriptions.
Yeah, and the Norse gods and everything. I mean, it's
yeah.
So let me ask you this: what advice would you give to someone looking to be spiritual but outside of religion?
That's a good question. Sit with silence. Go out into nature. You don't even have to pray to a deity. You don't have to pray to, just sitting in silence is worship in itself, is acknowledgement of, of goodness. You don't have to be religious. You can be spiritual. Even the mystics say that you can be spiritual eating a thing of soup. It's about intention. It's about taking in the full moment in presentness. That is spiritual. So actually there's a book by Rob Bell called Everything is Spiritual. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
I haven't read it, but I like the title.
Rob Bell always comes up with some pretty good titles.
Pretty good titles, I know. Yeah.
He likes to ruffle feathers in the religion.
He does, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But good. That's how I would I guess that's the first step into, becoming spiritual, which I think that's even a loaded term anyways. Like you mentioned that earlier,
I would agree with you. I find, for me personally, since leaving the church, everything has become more wondrous, if I can put it that way. I love nature, and and just how like science behind it and everything, and how the mysteries behind things and everything, and it just has created more of an awe, I guess you
Yeah.
could say, in my life than being in religion, having everything explained away ever did.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Absolutely.
so all right, my friend, we're coming up near the 45-minute mark.
Yeah.
Let me do this wonderful question. It's I said when we talked about this. Um, how can people follow you? Is there anything that you have coming up that they should be looking forward to? Tell us, how can we walk with you on this journey?
You can follow me on Divinely LGBTQ, which is as it sounds, how you spell it. And do I have anything coming up? You know, I've really been in a deep state of contemplation, quite honestly, and so I've really been reading more than I've been writing. I promise you, content is coming, but you know, you have to, as a person who creates content, you have to also stay fulfilled, and you have to you have to let the fire keep burning in you to actually produce anything. And so right now I've really been in a state of contemplation and prayer, and being intentional in that, and actually honing in my focus on things. So right now I've been reading books about like evolution and God, like books by Elia DeLeo, which I wonder if I have on me right now. Nope, it's all the way at the top, so I'm not grabbing for it. But there's a book by Elia DeLeo that I've been looking at, and it's called Christ in Evolution, I believe. I've been reading that. And so, yeah, just more reading. I had a really cool experience. You want to hear about it?
Yeah, yeah.
So, as you know, we talked about this recently. I mean, earlier on, that about how I believe in original blessing, original goodness, and I believe that for a while. However, I was reading the book by Matthew Fox, Original Blessing,
Uh-huh.
and I really had a moment when I was reading it where it really sank into the heart, and it really became real for me. I mean, I thought it was real for me, but it started to become um, like one of those ultimate beliefs, you know, those truths that I'm like, wow. But really, because he mixes the information from like history and theology and all that stuff, which I'm a sucker for. So, but yeah, that was a really cool experience. But yeah, anybody can follow me on Divinely LGBTQ. And feel free to message me. If you have anything you want me to talk about, let me know. I can't put out anything if I don't know what people want to actually hear from me about.
Yeah,
um,
yeah. That's a valid point.
yeah,
I'll say that as you've been talking, you've been getting a lot of love here, my friend.
I
Uh,
know.
just,
I am
you know,
so blessed. I have
as-
such good friends and people that I just adore, like Myra and Mary and Goddess of Tetris, and all of you all that are come to hang out with the both of us. You
yeah,
all, honestly, all of the people that have been complimenting have been people that have really inspired my journey, have added so much wisdom into my life, have poured into me. And so, yeah, I mean, just as much of the love that I'm getting, I send it all back because it is, you guys have really made such an influence in my life.
I cannot um, emphasize that enough about all of the names you've made or mentioned. But I tell you,
Yeah.
Myra, um, her posts,
Mm.
I always have to stop. Like, it's not one of those you like and move on.
Yeah.
No, it's like always one of those you have to stop and go, huh,
Yeah.
hey, let me think about that for a second.
Yes.
No, it's
Yes.
like,
And who is it you mentioned?
what's that?
Who is it?
Myra?
Myra. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
I
and
mean, honestly, if I had to, I mean, I'm kind of bragging on her, but I have never met someone with such a depth and knowledge in the things that she knows about. And she has such wisdom. And I mean, she's a genius, honestly. Like the things that I talk to her, I'm like, I'm blown away. Like half the time I struggle to keep up. So
yeah, yeah, it's exactly true.
next level.
Because I'm just like, how do you remember all of this stuff? I'm just like, she like
I
has
know. Yeah.
brains.
Also, I wanted to do another shout out for someone. I know they're not even on this podcast, but they complimented me, and so I have to give a shout out. She's currently doing a project 444. It's my friend Mary on here, or I forget. I am May Yub.
Yeah.
She is doing this. Writing a novel off of your past experiences and bringing life to your stories that you have held within you, and it's about healing. And I think that what she's doing is amazing, and I mean, it's
Yes.
amazing. So check out her page if you can.
There it is. I'm writing that down just to make sure that. Um, yeah, if you have not been to her page or Myra's page or Goddess's
Yeah,
page, or I know Blair was on here as well.
yeah, I love Blair, Informal
You know,
Mystic.
all of them. I mean, just
Yeah,
absolutely fabulous people, and I find that um,
yeah,
they make you a better person,
they
right?
do. They bring out the best in you.
Yeah, it's
And
exactly.
I think they pull out the wholeness that is within you, and they allow you to be completely you. I mean, my friends are my church, quite honestly. I mean,
Yeah, I
they do
agree.
so much for my life.
Definitely. I mean, that's
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, because when I hopped on, I was lucky enough to stumble into these people. I
Me
mean,
too.
just lucky enough to do it.
Yeah.
And I consider them friends, family, and I
Yes.
so like I can be me.
Hmm.
You know, with
Yeah.
would be like I would view Christ would be like loving, right?
Absolutely.
So
I've always said that my friends have been Christ for me, and I
yeah,
mean that
yeah.
entirely.
Well, my friend Mox, I cannot thank you enough. Seriously, I put you in
Thank you.
a group as well of people that has challenged me, has encouraged me, and I'm looking forward to your new content, whatever that is. So if you
Thank
guys have
you.
ideas of what you want him to talk about, shoot him a DM.
Thank you. You
And
are so beyond kind, and it's been such a pleasure in getting to know you more recently. We bonded when I saw your pipes in the back. So, I knew you were good people. So, you've been such a light in my life. Absolutely.
oh, well, I hope we can do this again. Maybe we'll come
Yes.
pick or something. I just was so fascinated and encouraged by your life. I wanted for anybody that is following me that doesn't follow you, I want people to know you because
Thank
you are
you.
a light bringer, really, when it comes to it. So, thank you so much,
Thank you.
and thank you everybody that's been following us and listening to us this whole time. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you later.